Welcome to the Monday, February 13th, regular business board meeting of the Board of School Directors. I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Copeland.
Good evening, everyone. It gives me great pleasure to present at our business meeting another school program that we're extremely proud of. This is the Best Buddies program, and I'd like to turn it over to our high school advisors.
Good evening. We're just going to show a video to begin our presentation.
Okay.
Don't underestimate the power of friendship.
While many similarities bring us together, one that shines brightest is the importance of community and a need for connectedness.
Like, best buddies matches people like me.
Match people like me.
Like me.
Like me.
Like me.
With people like me.
Like me.
To create one-to-one friendship that foster understanding, break down barriers, and help us see how.
Smart!
Beautiful. Animation.
Because everybody needs a buddy, including me.
Best buddies.
Best buddies!
Best buddies!
Best buddies!
Best buddies!
Best buddies!
Best buddies!
Best buddies.
Good evening. I'm Heather Van Horn. I'm the co-advisor at Lower Merion High School. This is Jen Valliere, another co-advisor at Lower Merion High School, and Pat Snyder, Harriton's sponsor, co-advisor. First and foremost, thank you. We're very humbled to be here this evening, and I'm very heartfelt thankful to Ben Walsh, who produced with some of his students that we call it a video teaser, because what we're doing moving forward as the year goes along, further collaboration with our arts department to showcase Best Buddies between Harriton and Lower Merion. So there's a lot more coming our way, but we wanted to give you that little teaser in our celebration of what Best Buddies is in our community. Best Buddies is broken down to peer buddies, buddies, and one-to-one friendships. We also have associate members, and they participate in large activities. All these students be in for any of these levels, so it's quite the community that we provide. We wanted to give you kind of a snapshot of what Best Buddies throughout the years has been. The journey began by a young man by the name of Patrick Scott, brought the idea to Best Buddies to Melissa Sinapi Gibson with a lens of having Matthew Holland as his buddy. The club started with 2 students. Through the 4 years of building the club, we have since brings us to 2012, we have consistently had over 100 students involved. In 2013 and 14, our leadership team implemented the talent show and got the fashion show at Neiman Marcus. That brought us into the regional community then.
Then in 2014-2015, Best Buddies began at Harriton High School with 2 students. At Lower Merion, our student-led leadership team started talking to the middle school students about getting chapters at both Ballackinwood and Welsh Valley Middle Schools. In 2015-2016, Lower Merion High School hosted the Best Buddies Walk, which included 25 other high schools and colleges in the region to celebrate inclusion and community.
It was the incredible success of Lmsb program that shed light on the idea for Harriton to start a Best Buddies group. Similar to Lmsb program, Harriton started small in 2014 with only 3 buddies. Veronica Fenton, Drew Dannenbaum, and Samuel Nickberger brought life to the ideas to the program. In 2015, we started fundraising and participating in the Best Buddies Walk, held every spring. In 2016, we started holding monthly events for our students. These monthly events have brought our numbers up to 6 buddies and active participation from the school community. I'd like to introduce the officers for the Lower Merion's group. Nolan Shapiro, Jesse Epstein, Rebecca White, and Marilena Capoletti. The Harriton officers are Veronica Fenton, Drew Dannenburn, and Matthew Weichert.
So as you can see, our recruitment is stronger than ever, and it's continuing to grow, and it's going faster than we ever could have imagined.
The people we really want to thank before we get into our part is Ms. Valier and Ms. Van Horn. Their dedication and drive is what gives Best Buddies Lower Merion such a name that's worth mentioning, so thanks to them. Okay. Ooh.
And we as well would love to thank, first of all, the Best Buddies officers and like just the Best Buddies program at Lower Merion, because they really gave us the idea to be able to start it at Harriton, and also Mr. Snyder, who's been so helpful with us starting it at Harriton, making it into like an actual club there.
Okay, so a big thing that Best Buddies Lower Merion and Best Buddies in general focuses on is a sense of community. And this year we really wanted to bring family into that community. So our peer buddies should be part of the family with their buddy, and the buddy should be part of the peer buddies family. And the associate members should all come together with everyone. So we started two things this year. One is the parents brunch, which is we did in the beginning of the year when we had all the parents over at Nolan's house for brunch, and we just talked to them about what the club is, talked about what it means to be involved and what it means to be part of this community and family, so that the communication was more open from the outset. And then the next thing we did was we turned our annual holiday party into a family potluck. So all the parents came and they brought food and desserts, and we all hung out and drew and listened to music and watched Christmas movies and listened to Hanukkah songs and all of these fun things. So we wanted to do this for several reasons. One, like I said, was to make peer buddies and buddies part of each other's families. And two was to make communication open and more easy.
And so we feel that we're getting the intended effects of this. The parents are starting to become much more involved. They're starting to email us with questions about our upcoming events, and they're offering their help driving students, coming to the events, doing whatever they can to make Best Buddies even better. And so we're starting to see a more family-friend relationship forming. So as Jesse said, we want the peer buddies and buddies, families as a whole, to start coming together. And now we see they're going out to lunches and dinners together, and we can really see, relationships forming instead of just friends. And so a huge example of this is our annual holiday party, or Halloween party, which is a holiday, so. And so the Bryn Mawr Fire Company welcomed us with open arms, and this is just evidence of how our community is really growing and everybody's getting involved now.
So at Harriton this year, pretty much our main goal was to grow this club as much as possible, because as the advisor said before, at Harriton specifically, we only started this club about 3 years ago. So what we wanted to do was start out with a big campaign of awareness and kind of integrating Best Buddies into the Harriton community. So when you see certain events, which is something that we're looking forward to in the future, you look at it and you think, yes, it's Harriton, but also it's integrated within Best Buddies. So we wanted a really, really big event, which is going to draw a lot of people to be able to increase membership this year. So we decided that we were going to partner with one of the largest clubs at our school, which had some of the most dedicated members, which is Student Council, and we were going to put on a tailgate at our homecoming game, which is the biggest event at Harriton for the beginning half of the year, and that's when we wanted to really bring up Hal with this event. So what we ended up doing was we put posters all over the school advertising this Best Buddies sponsored homecoming tailgate. We had kids from our club bring in a ton of food, so we had burgers and chips and drinks and candy and dessert and everything right in front of the field for the homecoming game. And about an hour and a half before everyone came to the track to see the game, a ton of people, we'd say probably about 100 people, came to all take part in this Best Buddies sponsored tailgate. We had people eating and drinking and having fun, and there were games like cornhole, and people were passing around footballs, and it was really great because all the people that were at it, it wasn't only the peer buddies and the buddy pairs, but it was also the families of the buddies and just the football team and really everyone from our school. And it was really, really great because we did in fact see a huge growth in membership of our club, people really wanting to get involved from this great event that we had at the beginning of the year. And in the future, what we're looking to do is have a homecoming dance at Harridan in addition to the homecoming game. And what we really want to do is have Best Buddies sponsor it. That way we can get it kind of as a staple at our school, that you see homecoming, which is this very, very big kind of fall event that we have, and you think homecoming, and then in addition you also think Best Buddies. So.
Speaking of homecoming, one of the coolest things that I have seen happen in Best Buddies was this year Alexis DaCosta won Homecoming Queen. She was voted on by the whole school as that's how that works, and this really shows how our inclusion goal is working, because it was the first time that a student from our program and our community has been nominated and therefore has won a position like this. And it was a huge win for Alexis, who's up there very excited, and also just for Best Buddies and all of us who are a part of it. Even 10 years ago, this type of pairing, that's Terrell, he's on the varsity basketball team, and Alexis would never have been even imagined, but now, partly due to Best Buddies, we like to think we've broken down a lot of barriers, and something as amazing as this has happened.
So one of our final achievements that we'd really like to highlight tonight is our outreach. In September, Best Buddies Pennsylvania got a section reserved at a Phillies game for Best Buddies, and the school that sold the most tickets got to nominate a person in their program to throw the first pitch. And so I'm happy to say that Lower Merion sold the most tickets to friends, family, students, teachers, again, going back to the community orientation. And we got to nominate Jake O'Connor, who's a huge sports fan. He always wins the March Madness bracket. It's amazing. But he got to throw the first pitch, and I got to go out there with him. We got to see the Fanatic. It was a lot of fun. And the stadium made announcements about Best Buddies, and they had fundraisers, and it was a huge awareness cause, just as Veronica was stating, how it's a very important part of Best Buddies. And so this is just one example of how outreach is growing. The community and Best Buddies is really getting together now, and we can accomplish great things, and our message is finally being heard, and the effects are extremely positive.
All right, and on the Harriton side, one of our goals this year was friendship, and so one of the things that we saw was that a lot of our buddies couldn't necessarily go to traditional movie theaters. It was a tough setting for them. So we took over the LGI at Harriton one afternoon, and we had all of our buddies come together and watch the film Secret Life of Pets, and it was really amazing to give them an opportunity that they don't always get and see them do something that people traditionally do with their friends. And it wasn't as visible as the tailgate that Veronica talked about, but it was really special for all of our buddies. One of our buddies' brothers came all the way from Maryland to witness it, and he had a really great time. And just got to see a great sense of community and friendship that Best Buddies has created at Harriton. So thank you guys for your support.
Did the board have any questions?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank everybody. I know you have a million pulls on your time and so many things to do, and it's just fabulous that you choose to grow a program that's going to affect so many people. It's just really a beautiful thing.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank all the faculty sponsors and the student leaders for really embracing such a great program and bringing it to our school community. I think it really stands for what we are, and I couldn't be more proud of you as students, so thank you.
I just want to echo those same sentiments on behalf of the board. Thank you for sharing with us, and we're excited about the growth of the program. I think a few years ago, 4 or 5, we had a presentation, and to see the exponential growth is awesome, and it's a testament to all the hard work. So thank you again to the faculty as well as the students.
Congratulations.
Mr. Copeland?
I have a budget presentation that I'm sure you all want to.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Have a nice night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Thank you. Good luck on your tests.
Take care.
Good evening. A month ago, the board, the administration presented its recommendations for a preliminary budget to the Board of Education and to the public. As is the scenario, a month later, we're here again, and it's the opportunity for the Board of Education to vote on the preliminary budget. Just as a matter of course, I should indicate that this is preliminary. This is not a final budget. And we'll have a number of hearings this year to review the budget. And so what I've done is a little unusual. Dr. Van Lynch asked me to redo the presentation, not in its original form, but in an abbreviated form with some other explanations about this. So if you were here or if you've seen it in the past, you'll see some slides repeated, but and the concept is the same, but we wanted to include some other information. The biggest impact of enrollment, and I did say this a month ago, the greatest cost to any school district is directly related to the number of children served. Our enrollment growth cost is about 1% annually. No other school district in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has been impacted more than Lower Merion. Just to go back in time a little bit, in the last 10 years, from an enrollment increase of over 1,000 students, we've had to hire 98 new teachers. I had them look it up this year. There were a 98 teacher growth since 2006 to 2016. And I can't tell you what the dollar amount is, obviously, because that was sort of a moving target as you went, but you can imagine we're talking somewhere in the neighborhoods of $8 to $9, maybe more $million. The renovations to the buildings, Gladwin, Penn Valley, Welsh Valley, Bala-Cynwyd, and the district administration offices where we've put in new science labs, all related to growth. And to a certain degree, the construction of Lower Merion and Harridan High School. So you can see the significant dollar investment over the 10-year period. In an 8-year period, and we used 8-year because this is the figure that the Department of, we have data from the Department of Education to qualify this. 502 school districts, one of them may be a non-acting district, some say 5-1. 418 school districts saw a decline in enrollment. 418 saw a decline in enrollment. 84 districts showed a growth of at least 1 student in enrollment, but 15 school districts showed a growth of 10% or more. And as you can see from the slide, Lower Merion School District's growth was 1,474 students and a 21.3% increase, the highest per pupil increase in the last 8 years of any school district in Pennsylvania. The next largest growth was 872 students. With that growth, we've also taken a look at efficiency. I described this last time. Last fall, the administration came to the board with a proposal and said, you know, there's a way we can not, you know, collapse some of our art rooms and music rooms and so forth and so on if we go to a partner schooling approach. So here's what we did. We said if a new student moves in after July 1 and the class size targets of their home school have been reached, we'll provide transportation to a partner school. This year we've asked the board to back that up to June 1st. So this would not impact students who are currently in the school system, but if you move in new, and so this was a major change from what we had done in the past. But the argument was, well, we could save hiring teacher positions, but even more importantly, we could save maybe collapsing some of our core facilities like art rooms and music rooms and so forth and so on. So while it was a major departure from what the board had done in the past, we think it was a good move to make, and we've continued this. Now, no one, I think, wants to raise taxes, and that's not been the board's direction to the administration nor the recommendation necessarily by the administration to the board. But just so that there's some sense as to where we are, the top line represents all of the districts where there's been growth. Remember I said there were those 15 districts. That's their equalized millage. The next line represents the state of Pennsylvania, and the bottom line represents Lower Merion Township. I indicated at the last meeting that there were two decisions that were made that really mattered in the past. The first was in 2004, the Lower Merion Board of School Directors authorized the building of 2 new high schools. I'm not saying that was a bad decision. In fact, I think it really gives an opportunity for, you know, more participation, and you saw some of that tonight. But it is a fact, and that fact turned into debt service or payment on the mortgage that was substantial. The second thing that happened was in the spring of 2007, the entire Lower Merion School District community took a vote against an earned income tax or a personal income tax. Now, at the last meeting, a comment that was made that was like suggesting I was in favor of that. I'm not in favor of it. All I'm simply saying is, and it doesn't add money, that under Act 1, and I'm looking at Mr. Roos for confirmation on this, under Act 1, if the board had voted, or if the community had voted yes for this, the money would have had to have come from tax. It would have been a property tax coming from property taxes, correct?
Correct. It would have had to have been a complete offset.
So again, not making a comment as to whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, it was something that took place. The 2017 preliminary budget highlights. We've got to deal with the current and future tax revenues that are uncertain. And the state budget, when we last spoke, was not put forth by the governor. It has been now. So from what we've read, the governor will add about $125 million, of which this district would get about $100,000. It would be $125 million across the state. We get about $100,000. But he's also cut $50 million from the transportation funding. Now, we don't know what formula the legislature will use to apply that percentage cut to districts, but if they were to take a proportional cut, that means we would lose $240,000. And of course, we're still looking at pending litigation. And here, this is, and I'm going to ask Mr. Orlando to discuss this, but before he does, I just want to point out that when we're looking at anticipated revenues, we're looking at using a fund balance of about $6.4 million to close our budget gap. That's compared to about 9.2 from the previous year. What that really means is we've really tried to sharpen our pencils and make sure that we're bringing in as low a revenue request as possible. Mr. Orlando?
Sure. The rest of the slide is our local sources, and you can see they're mostly comprised of our tax revenues. The line where it says current real estate tax revenues based upon the approved millage by the school board in June of 2016. And most of the other categories are relatively the same from this year with a few minor adjustments. The next slide are the state and the federal sources. The state sources are estimates. As Mr. Copeland pointed out, the Commonwealth budget was presented last week by Governor Wolf, and we'll continue to monitor the proceedings over the next few months for any adjustments. Do note the one line item where it says state property tax reduction allocation has not been determined yet. That is scheduled to be determined on April 15th, so it's blank at this time, and this item will be adjusted when the announcement is made. The remaining federal sources you can see are relatively the same from this year. So our total revenues prior to an increase in the millage rate is $259,750,000. I'm sorry, $259,750,206. The next slide is a breakdown of our expenditures. The salaries and benefits for the preliminary budget are around $206 million, which represents 77% of our budgeted expenditures. The other category, which is approximately $60 million, and some of those items that are included in there are IU services for special needs students, utilities, leases such as for copiers, books, technology, tuition payments, debt service payments, legal services, software, fuel, and insurance. So you can see the total amount of the 2016-17 preliminary budget is $267,774,253. This is a 3.41% increase from this year's budget. In order to have a balanced preliminary budget, the millage rate would increase 3.85% to 28.4493. And the next slide, just for a medium house assessment of $250,680, the increase would be $264.
Thank you. Where's the money go? Well, all through this year, what we've been doing is showing different programs and explaining, quite frankly, with some pride, where the money goes. A low class size, extensive curricular and co-curricular offerings, a commitment to the arts and music, numerous enrichment programs, international baccalaureate, dual enrollment, interdisciplinary programs, the foreign language, the inclusive instructional model and environment that I think you saw this evening, enhanced academic support services at all buildings. These are literacy support teachers and math specialists, enhanced holistic support services, counselors, psychologists, etc., extensive after-school and summer enrichment programs at all levels, commitment to community service, service-oriented programs, and a commitment to hire, recruit, and professionally develop staff. During the course of this year, and you'll see a calendar, and I took just one slide from it, we're going to have a series of Finance Committee meetings that goes into depth around things like curriculum, special education, transportation and operations, and various programs. So this is an example of what our extracurricular and co-curricular, this is what I'm talking about in terms of, we have 118 teams in 2 high schools. Clubs and after-school activities, 96. The on-stage performances. I was at the Lower Merion High School this Saturday and saw a great play, but it takes more than just the advisors. So all of those things go together for the richness, I would argue, of our program. The 5-year exceptions, the state of Pennsylvania, the legislature has indicated that over and above the Act 1 limit, there are things outside of the control of school districts. One of them is special education costs. Another one is the pension costs. So I went into this with some detail at the last presentation. I'll just summarize. The district, under the exceptions rule, was able to tax over $1.88 million, more than was utilized. In all but 1 year, the actual special education cost exceeded the allowable exception. In some years, special education increases were partially funded through the Act 1 tax index, and the actual special education instructional increases totaled $12.9 million. Under the pension fund, the total amount not taxed as an exception is $3.7 million. The total amount taken within the index was $5.7 million. Now, we do hold a committed fund balance for pension, because we know that the pension obligation of the district is growing at a rapid rate. So over a number of years, we put aside dollars to be able to pay for that. When we thought the extended pension benefits were going to hit us hard in the year 2020, we're actually still doing some recalculation. We think it may actually come before that, but this gives us an opportunity to pay our pension obligation, but not cost programs as a result of that. So overall, if you take a look at the historical comparison between the preliminary and the final budgets, you can see, if you look at the heavy bar in the center and just look to the right of that, you can see that there were, except in 1 year, going back the last 5 years, not including last year, there was not a reliance on the full exception use for the district. The budget calendar, as I indicated, we've firmed up some dates. These are going to be, I think they are advertised. Mrs. LaPara is shaking her head, so they are advertised. And I really encourage people to come out and take an in-depth look at some of the things that are in the budget. In conclusion, and I say this with all humility, Lower Merion School District, a public school system, we pride ourselves on inclusiveness, taking in every student, working very hard, and providing not just an adequate education, but a superlative education. And I know I'm biased, but I would argue as the product of public schools and as somebody who's committed their career to public schools, that they are the bedrock of our republic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland and Mr. Orlando. I'd like to open it up for questions from the board at this time. Are there any? I know we've seen this presentation a number of times, but we wanted to make sure that it was presented again prior to our preliminary budget vote this evening. Anyone? All right. So at this time, we will open up for audience recognition for agenda items only. If you would please sign in with Ms. LaPera if you're interested in providing public comment. There's a 3-minute time limit. And if you could give us your name and generally where you reside in the district. Thank you very much.
Jane, you can come up, and Daniel, you can come up, and then anyone else can just go ahead and sign in after.
Hello, my name is Jane Broderson. I'm a mom in the district, 5 boys, and I'm here on behalf of Save Lmsb. If you don't know us, we are a grassroots, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We support strong public schools in our district, and we support our school board. We have a petition. The last time we checked, there were 2,721 of us all standing together to support our strong public schools in the face of the $55 million lawsuit. We elected you folks. We elected you fair and square, democratically. You won. Some people lost. Our taxes are among the lowest in the region, and our schools are among the greatest in the entire United States. So we think you're doing something right. We trust you, and if the plaintiffs in the lawsuit are telling us we should trust them and they know what's best for our community, to us, that's almost like Betsy DeVos saying, trust me, I'm going to do what's best for the public schools in the U.S. But we don't think so. And what's with all this shaming? Every time we have a budget meeting, the plaintiffs are shame on you and shame, and you should be ashamed and embarrassed. What's with that? This is the 21st century. Maybe they would have benefited by the Buddies program that we just heard. That was pretty awesome. There was no one shaming anyone. And what's with this statement that our public schools are meant to be inherently inferior? I would say with pride, and we would all say with pride, take any one of our public school teachers in Lower Merion and let them go head-to-head against any private school teacher in this region. Let them. We're proud of our teachers. We pay them well, and we want them to provide the best to our community. That statement about inherently inferior is a form of class warfare. It's pitting the haves against the have-nots. That's not what we're about. And to quote Elizabeth Warren, we're not going to build your stupid wall. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Dan Marie Nefron from Wynwood, and again, I wanted to address the board once again and tell you again that there are many, and as you heard from the petition, thousands of people out in the community who may not be able to come here tonight, but they very much support the work that the school board does and that the community does, and that the teachers do to create a good community for all of us. And I think at previous meetings there was a suggestion, for instance, about, maybe we should move students around every semester or every year from one overcrowded school to a different one. I think this would be very disruptive, create a lot of chaos, and I think it's basically part of a campaign to try to reduce the quality of the public school. And let's not fool ourselves. This is what this is about. This lawsuit is simply about trying to starve the public school of money to educate all the children of the community. And I think that this is something that we should all stand up. This is not about some pennies here and some pennies there. There's a lot of talk about people moving out of the township. Clearly, the number of students in the school disproves that. I can also tell you from real estate perspective that the inventory of houses is, I look back 10 years quickly before I came. In the last 10 years, the inventory is down at the lowest that it's been in Montgomery County. So I think that there's a lot of rumor and fake facts or whatever they're called today about what's happening. But I just wanted to read you a quote, and I think the stated intent of the lawsuit of creating a lower quality basic education goes against our values and that of the United States and our country. Creating a segregated system, basically Mark Twain talked about this back a while, and he famously said, when I was a boy on the Mississippi River, there was a proposition in a township there to discontinue public schools because they were too expensive. An old farmer spoke up and said, if they stopped building the schools, they would not save anything because every time a school was closed, a jail would have to be built. And I think those words are very relevant even today, and we should all insist on a quality, good education. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mr. Browndies?
Philip Browndies, Wynwood, Pennsylvania. Thank you for the presentation. I noticed this presentation didn't include the $61 million in reserves highlighted in the slide. And with that in mind, this budget for 2017-18, you can spend that budget and give the taxpayers a break by using that reserve and not raising taxes this year. I think it would send a strong message that you hear what's going on. You've heard last week from some of our older residents and the impact this budget has. And I don't think having Med Superintendent Copeland, I know that's not his intent to inflict any harm. And I don't believe that any of you on the board, Mr. Fetterman, Mr. Driscoll, Dr. Van Lynch, want to see that happen. The older folks, they may have a little loss of courage, not come up here to speak, but I know some of the fervent supporters of the school board have even gone so far to say that, well, if they want to stay in their homes, they should take out a reverse mortgage. I don't believe any of you would suggest that's how somebody should spend their older years, paying down their house for taxes and not being able to leave it to their children or their grandchildren. I don't believe any of you want to see that happen. So why don't you give us a break this year, take the money from the $61 million, you wouldn't have to raise the taxes, and our children could have everything that you showed in those slides. So think about it. I know you can do it. It's just a matter of a vote. Superintendent Copeland would gladly go back, redo the budget, and Mr. Orlando. There's still time to do that, and I think that's would send a strong message to the community this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Adrian Seltzer.
Adrian Seltzer from Wynwood, Pennsylvania. Hello. I'm going to start by saying I am not for two-tier education, but I do have a degree in accounting, and I think that there can be savings done in this budget. I mean, what we got, I printed it out, the slideshow, and what we have basically is a 30-page sales promo and 2.5 pages of budget. The budget from one of the competitive school districts that is mentioned in the top 15 is like about 5 pages, you know, small print. And that's their budget that they're showing their citizens. I have in the past requested, you know, what the expenses are, and I got from Mr. Orlando an unsorted Excel spreadsheet, and that basically told me nothing, absolutely nothing. I have a right-to-know request form here that I made way more detailed this time, so I can at least find out what the bills and payments for any legal expenses incurred by Lower Merion School District for any reason categorized by reason, to defend special need requests, lawsuits, etc., including insurance policy costs that cover legal expenses. That is nowhere listed on your budget, on any of final expenses. I can't find out how much you're spending in legal fees. And I can't find out a lot of other things because they're classified under these ubiquitous, thank you, these ubiquitous account things that just don't tell anyone anything if you're not familiar with school district nomenclature. And I just think it is, the question that I have is, did the school board, when they saw this budget, get anything more detailed than what you gave the public? And if not, how can you make a decision based on this? And that's my real questions. I'm not for cutting teachers' salaries or anything like that, but I am for being efficient and for not just throwing money around. I mean, in the new school in Lower Merion, I teach cooking. I go into the cooking room, and you've got Viking appliances in there. And Viking is not a professional brand. So, you know, like, it led me to believe that who was getting this kickback to get Viking in there when you could have gotten a really good brand that didn't cost anywhere near as much. Little things like that. Thank you.
Ms. Sirota, thanks. Rosa's. You want to sign? Ms. Sirota's signed up. Go ahead.
Good evening, Rosa Sirota, Wynwood. I think you've muddied the waters. This lawsuit is not about special education, cutting courses. It is about a budget that has an excess of $55 million of reserves, and you are asking us for a tax hike of anything? That amazes me. It absolutely amazes me. You are in court where this is being considered. All of you who have run under a transparency. I don't see anything transparent about this. First of all, the reserve fund was not clear how much was in it and how much was someplace else. Next, we really don't need all that. We've been building up reserves for the past 5 years. Why don't we just use the money we have? We have a great school district. It was going well before you all got on the board. I'm just asking you all to be very honest with us. This is going to a higher court. We are paying for your lawsuit. So at least be honest with us and go back and look at this again, reevaluate it, and be transparent. I have been characterized by some folks as an enemy of the school district. I take issue with that. I have attended school board meetings for over 30 years. I've served on committees. I served when my grandson in the school was in elementary school. I've shared my thoughts with you. I don't call that an enemy of the school district. People can have different ideas, but we don't have to be characterized as an enemy of the school district. I suggest that you all look at this budget again and do what is realistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Okay. If there's anyone else interested in speaking, please sign in with Ms. LaPere at this time.
Hello, everybody. Najee Grand, resident of Ardmore and former student, Lower Marion School District. Wasn't going to say anything up until a couple minutes ago. I had a question related towards superintendent's presentation when he said where the money goes, like we're talking about the budget. While he was talking, I looked up the student achievement programs on the district's website. So I just had a question. I didn't see anything in that presentation that had anything related to do with the student achievement gap. Or maybe he did say something, but I didn't hear it, or he said something on a different name. So I just want to know how much of the budget is going towards the programs that are listed under the student achievement gap programs. And then also I have a statement from one of the members from Save Lmsb that couldn't make it, but I wanted to make their statement public, from Jacqueline Feynman. I would like to thank all the members of our school board for their service and for taking one of the thankless tasks of financial planning for our district. I urge all Lower Marion residents to be mindful of the large number of financial liabilities facing the district in the next few years, including significant pension and debt liabilities and some of the highest enrollment growth numbers in Pennsylvania, which necessitate increased capital spending and higher allocations for special education and other student-related services. Perhaps more importantly, there are significant unknowns on the public school horizon. We need to keep our eye on this bigger picture. We now have an education secretary hostile to the notion of public education, as well as potential school tax legislation coming out of Harrisburg that will threaten the funding of our schools, as well as our local control of this funding. I urge everyone to keep in mind that public school excellence is the primary driver of real estate value. Not only students, but property owners, landlords, small business owners, and service providers all depend on a community that is perpetually desirable as a place to live, precisely because of the quality of its public schools. Thus, one of the best things we can do is provide unified support for those who seek to strengthen their schools. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
That's it.
I'd like to address some of the issues that came out of it. In terms of the board's background, we had a board budget information-only retreat with the board. I'm looking around, some think December, some think January. I'm losing track of time and space. Do you remember? Was it early? Early January. It was early January. And it was 3 hours in-depth look at the budget at that time. So I can assure folks that these board members take their jobs seriously. In terms of going forward, as I had indicated in the meeting, or excuse me, in the presentation, we've set aside, I think it's 4 or 5 extra Finance Committee meetings to go through the very specifics that the last speaker was asking about. So, for example, in terms of supporting students, there's a contract on this evening, bringing in a specialist from Rutgers University who's working with us. In terms of support staff for students in our schools, I think we've got 2 reading specialists and a math specialist in every elementary school, middle school, and high school also. And there is an enormous amount that's going to students, and we can detail some specific things having to do with the achievement gap and other programs. And I really, really encourage folks to come out to those meetings. If I give a long presentation, then we're sort of criticized for having a long presentation and not enough presentations. This way you get the opportunity. Every one of those will be videotaped, and I'm sorry, I guess videotape is a recorded and will be broadcast or streamed. But I think it's important if you have the opportunity to come to the meeting, because then you can have sort of a back and forth with us about some of those things and gain a greater depth of understanding. And I just want to, summarize again by saying the growth in the district is a real situation. And when you have to hire folks, when you have to hire teachers to make sure that you've kept the programs, it's not, I think the conversation is worth having, but I also understand that there's honest disagreements. I hope everybody believes that we're not here trying to spend money willy-nilly. But there has been a desire to have quality in the schools. One of the things that I left out of the presentation was the quality of facilities. And that's a real important thing, so that you don't sort of kick that facilities can down the road, and you keep your facilities up, and you don't have to spend a lot of money later on. But I really hope that people will come out to those meetings, have a conversation about where the funding is, and join with the board and the district in a debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. I also just wanted to add the budget information is on the front page of the website, as well as a direct link to the budget book that the board looks at extensively and goes over with both Mr. Copeland and Mr. Orlando to forecast what the budget will look like in terms of the preliminary budget going forward. And so at this time, I will move to approve the minutes from the following Board of School Directors meetings: January 23rd, regular business board meeting; February 6th, Education Committee and supplementary board meeting; and accept the following committee meeting minutes: February 1st, curriculum; February 3rd, policy; and February 10th, facilities and purchasing. Are there questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
There's a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now have the superintendent update.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. Some really good news. Harridan High School was well represented at the 30th Annual Pennsylvania State Education Association, quote, Touch the Future art show, as 22 students recently had their pieces selected into the juried competition, which spotlights extraordinary student art from schools throughout Bucks and Montgomery counties. Harridan's selections are highlighted by 3 overall winners: seniors Lillian Brody, Hannah Wheeler, who each claimed first place in the printmaking and fiber arts categories, respectively, and senior Charlotte Perrin, who took top honors in this year's competition with the coveted Best in Show award. Also, The Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation recently awarded Penguin Elementary School with the Alex Scott Crystal Cup at the 11th Annual Lemon Ball in honor of the Penguins. That's Penguins.
Yes.
Longstanding dedication and commitment to the fight against childhood cancer. The impact of the Penguin community has extended well beyond their support of Alex's original lemonade stand in 2002 and the school's annual lemonade stand in subsequent years. Penguin parents have served twice as Lemon Ball co-chairs, and several parents and former students volunteer on the committee and at the event. Hundreds of school volunteers have helped out at the Alex Lemonade Stand fundraisers. The Harridan High School Robotics Club recently competed in the VEX Robotics Starstruck and State Qualifier. And despite the fact that it was only the team's second event in their inaugural season of competition, turned in an outstanding overall performance, ultimately qualifying for the Pennsylvania State Championship in March. The team's long-term goal is to qualify for the VEX Robotics World Championships. I don't even want to know where that's going to be, but which brings together the top 1,400 school robotics programs in the world. Congratulations to everyone. That's my highlights. Yes, stay right here with the mic. Okay. Under Human Resources, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached Human Resources Actions HR 1 through HR 6.
Are there questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now have the report of the Curriculum Committee meeting by Dr. Gilbert.
Thank you. The Curriculum Committee met on February 1st. We had a number of presentations. I'm going to take a couple minutes to talk about them because this is sort of the education issues that we focus on. The Curriculum Committee has spent 3 meetings since November reviewing our state data in order to better understand the data, what it can and can't tell us about our schools, and how we are responding to the information it is able to tell us. The PowerPoint presentations can be found on our website under the Curriculum Committee meetings, and then the presentations were subsequently given at evening education meetings in November, January, and February, and those presentations are videotaped and can be viewed on our website. Just to remind people, the first presentation gave an overview of the school performance profile in terms of understanding the data behind the score. The second presentation focused on understanding the achievement data. And the most recent presentation in this last February 1st meeting focused on understanding the growth data, or what's called PVOS data, and other indicators that are used to determine our scores. So that's what I'm going to highlight now. There are a few points that I think are particularly important to highlight related to growth data as opposed to achievement data, which I talked about in the last report. First of all, achievement data is correlated with non-school factors such as socioeconomic status, but growth data is not. There is little relationship between student growth and student demographics, so that makes it quite different. It is a common misconception that because we have so many high-achieving students, there is less room for growth. This is simply not true. There is a lot of room for growth for our highest achieving students, and our goal is to provide them the educational opportunities to achieve such growth. What we found is that we have a strong track record of achievement on the PSSAs and Keystones, with some subgroups of students not achieving at the level we would like to see. However, when we look at the growth data, we actually see positive growth for the key student subgroups that we're concerned about achievement levels. So that's good news. We're seeing growth among those students. But our highest achieving students aren't growing as statistically predicted, alerting us to the need to pay attention to what is going on there. We're very strong in the other category, and that's because of our strong curricular offerings that support college preparedness. Much of our rich curricular and co-curricular programs are not actually accounted for in the SPP score, and many of our grades are not either. So while the scores are important, they do not tell the entire story of any school, let alone the Lower Merion School District's experience. So with all this in mind, what were some of the specific responses to an analysis of all the data? And this is all the data that was reported over 3 meetings, not just the growth data. We found that we need to pay more attention to text-dependent analysis, and we have an action plan to do so. We are paying attention to middle school math benchmarks and developing action plans. We have a curriculum audit and data teams around specific issues. We're developing building level learning plans, superintendent reports, and supervisor reports. We're developing instructional and professional learning priorities. And we're discussing the creation of writing centers in the high schools to provide students more one-to-one assistance and practice with writing research papers. So I'd like to thank the administration for the time and effort that they put into developing the presentations to help the board and community better understand the SPP score. And even more importantly, I want to acknowledge the thoughtful analysis and use of data to better to help improve our students' educational experience rather than in a manner that results to teaching to the test, which none of us want. So again, if you're interested in those presentations, you can find them online. We also had a presentation about the CARE and the Achievement Imperative Task Force. So we had a second important presentation that dovetails very nicely with our analysis of data and the strategic plan that discussed the ways that we are addressing racial and other achievement gaps through the Committee to Address Race in Education, or CARE, and the Achievement Imperative Task Force, which I'll just refer to as the task force right now. Ms. Lynn Partridge, who chairs CARE and was a founding member, gave the presentation on CARE, and Dr. Everslag, our assistant superintendent, gave the presentation on the task force. CARE originated in 1997 to better understand, address, and eradicate what we now call the achievement gap. It's a group of community members, parents, teachers, and administrators that meet monthly to support the needs of African American students and help them achieve to their fullest potential while being a resource for all schools. CARE addresses the gaps through engaging parents and families, using data to set priorities, ensuring high expectations of students, and encouraging a growth mindset, as well as fostering supportive peer cultures. And some examples of recent activities and discussion in CARE include talking about current events, such as recent shootings of Black young men and related protests, talking about how to foster high expectations for students, preparing for Black History Month in ways that are more empowering to Black students, and meeting with local police to discuss community school partnerships as they impact our students. So these are just examples of some of the important activities that CARE is engaged in. Members of CARE have provided leadership, expertise, and passion to ensure that the needs of African American students are front and center in the district. To further fulfill this mission, Mr. Copeland created the Achievement Imperative Task Force in January 2016 as kind of the action arm of CARE. Members of the task force include many CARE members as well as others who have relevant expertise or interests. The mission of the task force is to develop actionable, research-based strategies to eradicate the discrepancies in student achievement among underrepresented minorities and students of color, special needs students, students with economic and resource deprivation, and students who may just be disengaged, uninvolved, or disassociated. There are 4 subcommittees at the current time, including one about restorative discipline, which is discussing piloting and training restorative discipline practices before sort of more widespread implementation. There's another one on jump starts and on-ramps. So things being explored include a summer English as a second language academy, math on-ramps, secondary STEM, and elementary STEM jump starts. There's a committee to talk about in-school supports. And then finally, there's a committee on community engagement to build on our success and expand. And all of these are very much tied in with our strategic plan. So again, if you're interested, the full presentation was given at the last education meeting. We also got a summer school update. We're working with MCIU to provide some online options for our students to take summer school classes in order to provide more options and flexibility for students and families. And these options would be less costly for both families and the district. courses have been vetted by our curriculum team to assure the quality of the courses, and there still will be several options this summer offered in the traditional face-to-face model. Finally, we reviewed a contract. The committee approved moving a contract with Dr. Gittimore? Is that Jitomer? Sorry. I know he actually was at a meeting, but I was sick at that meeting. Not to exceed $20,000 for review to Facilities and Purchasing Committee. And he will be examining the relationship between assessments and curriculum goals in order to develop a cadre of teachers trained to review and implement better assessments across the district. Our next meeting is March 8th at 8:30 a.m. in this room. Thank you.
I'd like to, as the board, take a look at items B through D under Educational Services. Item B, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the below registration and tuition fee structure for the 2017 summer school programs. Further, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached overnight trips. And finally, the administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached independent contractor agreement with Dr. Drew Jitomer for professional services in a not-to-exceed amount of $20,000.
Are there questions? I have a question, Mr. Copeland. For summer school, do we offer any fee waivers or subsidy for families whose students want to attend? What are the parameters of that, if at all?
I know we do for SPIES. Fee waivers, we support it.
Summer school,
Yeah.
they pay the registration fee with no tuition.
Yeah. And based on what, free and reduced lunch?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now have the report of the Facilities and Purchasing Committee by Mr. Driscoll.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. We met this past Friday due to the snowstorm on Thursday in this room. And our first item was to review and recommend for approval the list of bills. We then reviewed and recommended for approval tonight the 7 contracts in the purchasing report. First was from S.J. Thomas for a total of $64,175.90. This is part of our improving pedestrian safety. The district will add 2 new flashing signs on Trent Road at Penwood Elementary and relocate and upgrade the existing flashing signs at Penn Valley Elementary. Those signs are very old and need an upgrade at Penn Valley. We then reviewed a contract from I2 Security Solutions for $13,329. This contract is to provide additional cameras at Ballackinwood Middle School in locations not currently covered, such as the stairwell, parts of the auditorium, and the bus loop. We then reviewed a contract from Bonfido for $98,000. This is to purchase a replacement chiller for Kinwood Elementary. The current chiller was installed in 1998 and is running on Windows 95. Given its age, it has been experiencing problems in the past and has reached the end of its useful life. The new chiller will obviously be more efficient and will also be able to connect the new operating system to our current building automation system. We then reviewed a contract from Starlight for $30,781. This is to give an upgrade to the public address system at Harriton High School, the outdoor stadium, which is well over 10 years old and nearing the end of its useful life. This contract will provide for additional speakers that will be able to reduce the amount of sound that leaves the property. The idea being more speakers can be run at less volume, so less noise should bleed over the property line. We then looked at a contract from Hundrew Ford for a truck for $46,840 in combination with Triad truck equipment, which is a utility upgrade for another $41,498, a total of $88,338. This contract is to replace an aging truck, a 2005 model, so over 10 years old, that the operations department has been using and has been experiencing increased repair needs given its age. Another truck from 5-Star International for $78,444, and another upgrade from Triad truck equipment for $44,470, a total of $122,914, to replace another truck aged of 2004. Again, a very old truck for us. The last contract in the purchasing report was approved by Hundrew Ford, a truck for $29,753, and a plow mount from U.S. Municipal for $1,385, a total of $31,138. Again, to replace an aging truck, but we do get to keep the plow, but we need a new plow mount for it, so there was some good news there. All of those were bid through either the EASY, IQC, or CoStar's cooperative bidding processes. We then reviewed and recommended for approval 2 contracts with St. Joe's Universities, each for approximately $15,250. The district is renting Hagan Arena to hold graduation ceremonies for both Harriton and Lower Merion this June. The district does not have a facility large enough on its own to hold the graduates, families, and guests. We then did review the district contract for Drew DeTomer, not to exceed $20,000. As stated by Dr. Gilbert, Dr. DeTomer will evaluate assessments and testing to help the district prepare better assessments and tests in line with the strategic plan. We then reviewed and recommended for approval 2 renewal contracts with Level 3. The first of the 2 is to provide internet service for the district for 3 years for a total of $91,618.20. The second contract is for Level 3 to provide DDoS protection for 3 years for $41,400. We then reviewed and recommended for approval an amendment to an individual work order for David Blackmore and Associates for additional water percolation testing at Ballackinwood Middle School and the nearby Amherst Field. This additional work will add $4,250 to the original work order, and this testing is in support of proposed construction at Ballackinwood Middle School. We reviewed and recommended for approval a consulting contract with VCOM for a not-to-exceed amount of $14,500. The district currently uses mobile phones to keep in contact with the various bus drivers throughout the day. Lower Merion Township has an existing radio system it uses for communications with its police, fire, and public works department. The consultant will examine the current usage on the existing township network to determine if the district can piggyback on that network without degrading the township's bandwidth and usage. If we're able to do that, we may be able to move over to this network, and this would improve driver response time, as drivers are not allowed to use their phones unless safely parked, and hopefully it could reduce costs if the district can indeed move over, as it will eliminate our reliance on cell phones for each driver. We then reviewed and recommended for approval a hold agreement with Mobile Lease for various staged amounts. Mobile Lease is taking on financial responsibility for holding a 6-classroom unit for the district pending our various township approvals. If the district cancels this order, the differing amounts of money will need to be paid to Mobile Lease to compensate Mobile Lease for its cost. We then finally reviewed and recommended for approval an upgrade license with Lutron Systems for $35,356. The computerized lighting system in Lower Merion High School is approximately 8 to 9 years old. The software running that system has become obsolete and is no longer being supported by various vendors. This purchase will give the district a more up-to-date and secure software package to manage the lighting system for several years. We then went on to receive updates on various projects. We briefly disclosed closing out Welsh Valley. The final punch list is still being compiled. For the DAO, a punch list is being compiled as well, with final changes hopefully to be presented at the March board meetings. We then did discuss projects at Ballackinwood Middle School. So currently the district is considering requesting a variance from the Zoning Hearing Board of Lower Merion to have the Ballackinwood Middle site go over its impervious limit by between 1% to 2% to allow for a 6-classroom modular unit to be placed on the infield of the track. That hearing will be held February 23rd at the Township Building. If those modules are put into place, the Township Code requires an additional 12 parking spaces. At this time, the district is seeking to ask those additional parking spaces to be placed in reserve, but the details of that will be coming forward as we go through the township process. We also discussed making improvements to both Welsh Valley and Ballackinwood Middle School cafeteria spaces. This is just the preliminary analysis, so future work will need to be examined, and we'll get future updates as that goes on. And finally, we briefly discussed the potential construction of a permanent 12-classroom addition, and again, the additional parking that would come with that. But both those projects will be moved forward, if needed, in the coming months. Our next meeting for facilities and purchasing will be in this room March 16th at 8:30. Thank you.
Under the business office and finance section, I want to take items B, C, and F in one motion. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the list of bills, approve the fiscal report for January 2017, and declare surplus equipment as surplus property and authorize disposition thereof.
There are questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There a second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm going to take Item D and E in one motion, since they both pertain to the preliminary budget. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors adopts the preliminary 2017-18 school district budget with authorized expenditures totaling $267,774,253 as presented in the attachment. Levies a real estate tax of 28.4493 mils, continues the 1% real estate transfer tax, and continues the $5 local services tax. In addition, the administration recommends the Board of School Directors authorize the following for budget exceptions in accordance with Act 1 to the Pennsylvania Department of Education.
Are there questions? Please.
Vic, do you have listed which budget exceptions we're looking for and how much of each we're asking?
I
I don't see it as an attachment here.
No, this is just authorizing the filing the advertisement. The two that we believe, according to PD, that we would be eligible for would be the special ed and the retirement, and the total was around $2.8 million for both of them.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve? Okay. Is there a motion to approve? There a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Under the facilities and operations, I'm going to, Mr. Driscoll went through all these in detail, so I'm going to take them all in one motion. The administration recommends the Board of School Directors approve the following action items. Awards the bid to the contractors in the order named in the attached purchasing report for installation, relocation of school zone flashing signals at Penn Valley and Penwood Elementary Schools. Installation of additional security cameras at Ballackinwood Middle School. Chiller replacement at Kinwood Elementary School. Athletic stadium sound system upgrade at Harrington High School, and 3 replacements for vehicles, truck replacements for the 2005 F530 dump truck, 2004 International Stake Body with liftgate, and the F250 pickup with aftermarket plow mount. They're being replaced with 3 new items. Approve the license agreements with St. Joseph's University for the Lower Merion and Harrington High School graduation ceremonies on June 6th and 7th, 2017 for an estimated amount of $15,250 for each school. Approve the agreement with Level 3 Communications LLC for internet services for the period July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2020 for a 3-year total of $91,618.20. Approve the agreement with Level 3 LLC for distributed denial of service mitigation services for the period July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2020 for a 3-year total of $41,400. Approve the agreement with Mobile Lease Modular Space Inc. for reservation of modular units in connection with the renovations at Ballackinwood Middle School. Approve the master agreement for professional services and the individual work order of VCOM LLC for not to exceed fee of $14,500. Approve the First Amendment to the individual work order for geotechnical and environmental services with David Blackmer Associates Inc. for not to exceed increased fee of $4,350. Approve the quote from Lutron Services Inc. for the quantum service upgrade for lighting control system at Lower Merion High School, and that's in the amount of $35,356.
Are there questions? And again, all of these were discussed extensively at facilities, as was noted in Mr. Driscoll's report of the meeting. Okay, any questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now have the report of the policy committee meeting by Ms. Robinson.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. It appears that I'm going to lose my voice, so I'm going to be very brief. We had second readings of policy in AR 105.1, curriculum review by parents, guardians, and students. We discussed policy and AR 904, public attendance at school events, and policy 555, private coaching or training of students by district athletic coaches. All three of those were for second reading. For first reading, we have policy in AR 713, access to school facilities. And for administrative regulations, we discussed 906, addressing complaints and concerns of the public. Our next meeting will be on March 10th, and hopefully my voice will be better by then. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. The attached policies were reviewed for second reading. Policy AR 105.1, curriculum review by parents, guardians, and students. Policy AR 555, private coaching or training of students by district athletic coaches. And policy AR 904, public attendance at school events. Are there questions? Please.
I attended the policy committee meetings, and at that time I expressed a concern about policy 555. So I'd ask when we vote on these if you could pull that one out and vote on it separately, because I want to vote against it and I don't want to vote against the other two. Just very quickly, I think that policy 555, which is private coaching and training of students, I think it's overly restrictive, and I'm concerned that it may interfere with our ability to hire and keep quality coaches. And so particularly I'm thinking swimming in particular, but there may be others, and I just, I'm all in favor of disclosure, but I just think the policies as written is too restrictive. So if you could pull that one out so we could vote separately, that'd be great.
Thank you. Are there any other requests for separation? Mr. Roos, should I just do them each separately, or can I collapse the 1 and 3?
You can do 105.1 and 904 together.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any additional questions? Okay. So policy 105.1, curriculum review by parents and guardians and students, and policy AR 904, public attendance at school events. Are there additional questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries on policies 105.1 and policy 904. Now, policy AR 555, private coaching or training of students by district athletic coaches. Are there additional questions? Please.
I just want to say that policy was discussed over how many months?
So it's been over a year.
I was going to say, and that this was the result of parent concerns, that there was a lot of discussion in the policy committee, and there was also discussion with parent communities such as ISC, and so I just wanted to mention that there had been a lot of discussion about this. That's all. Thank you.
Are there additional questions or comments? Mr. Driscoll?
I mean, one of the things that we did say, I take Diane's point, but there are ways to work around this. And I think one example that was discussed at policy was a coach could coach a boys team in a private somehow section, but be a district coach for the girls team. So there are ways that they can do both and not coach the same group of kids in both the private team setting and a district's team setting, which is the purpose of what the policy was trying to control. And there was even conversation, as I remembered, of, you know, this is new for the district, so if adjustments can need to be made, we will make them as best we can. So I think it was over a year that this policy has been on, so I think we've done what we can at this point.
Right. Any additional questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion carries 8-1. Thank you. We will now move to The following policies were reviewed for a first reading. Policy 713, access to school facilities. And now we will, this is Board of Directors' new business, approve the 2018-19 school calendar. Are there questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve? There a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We will now have, okay, an overview from our intergovernmental structure meeting, which was held Thursday, January 19th. Again, just a high-level overview. This group brings together the members of the Board of School Directors of Lower Merion School District, as well as Lower Merion Township, as well as Narberth Borough Council. We've had a number of productive meetings. We meet quarterly and talk about issues that are relevant across all three governmental entities. At this time, Mr. Driscoll will share a summary of that meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Van Lynch. The first item we talked about was walkability and traffic in general. And we did talk about some details of the progress being made by working groups at both Penn Wynne and the Penn Valley, Welsh Valley. As noted earlier today, we did vote to approve signage at both Penn Wynne and Penn Valley, so those working groups are bearing some fruit. We're still looking at other areas. The township is in the process of developing criteria for application of funds designated for enhancements and making areas more walkable, including things such as sidewalks, signage, and crosswalks. The township is asking for input from the district to help rank those spots or add additional ones. We did talk about some recent improvements, such as painting lines on Haggis Ford Road near Penn Valley Elementary, placing some signs in the middle of the road to try to reduce speed, and the sidewalk on Trent Road near Penn Wynne Elementary, as well as the additional signage. We did discuss having some overcrowding at certain bus stops where just a lot of students, parents, so we're trying to look into that issue to alleviate these congestion at certain spots. We then went on and talked about our enrollment. And to kind of give you some perspective, we've added about 1,474 kids in the last 8 to 9 years. To put that in context, the 10-day enrollment of Lower Merion High School is 1,440. So it is as if Lower Merion High School was not here 7, 8, 9 years ago. You could look at this from the elementary level, where we had about 731 at Gladwin, and Penn Wynne has about 738 for a total of 1,469. So again, it's almost as if 8, 9, 10 years ago, Gladwin and Penn Wynne were not here. We did talk about our projections because they came out in November, and this meeting was in January. In short, both demographers are looking to add about 800 to just under 900 students in the next 5 years. So that is something the district's taking very seriously, of how to address that additional 800 to 900 students. We did talk about looking for an additional campus, but that is difficult given the build out of this township. We then talked briefly about Bala Cynwyd Middle School and some of the things we voted on earlier. As outlined in earlier school board meetings, the district is considering construction projects at Bala Cynwyd, such as the 6 modulars located on the infield, 12 permanent classrooms, 2 stories near the cafeteria, a parking lot somewhere probably on Bala Cynwyd Middle School if we can't get that put in reserve, and possible expansion of the cafeteria. The additional classrooms are needed to meet, as I just discussed, during our growing enrollment. We did discuss the zoning hearing board that I mentioned earlier, and let's see. And the last thing is, after all of this conversation about enrollment, we at least, the Narberth and Township representatives definitely understand our predicament and are definitely interested in helping us find solutions to get this addressed. I think our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for April 27th. I think that's probably going to hold unless something comes up, and that'll be here in this room. I don't know if we pick 7 or 7:30 yet, but we'll announce that as we get closer to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll. We will definitely advertise that once the meeting approaches. Ms. LaPera will handle that on our behalf. And just a huge thank you to Mr. Driscoll in terms of summarizing that meeting. It's extremely difficult to be a part of the meeting and facilitate, and then also take copious notes. So I want to certainly acknowledge that level of support and due diligence.
I apologize. We did take public comment. I didn't summarize it because I don't want to summarize other people's, but we had, I don't know, 7 or 8 people who came out and said they were curious about this or that. So it is designed to take public comment, so please come to the next meeting and give us your comments.
Thank you. We will now have audience recognition on agenda or non-agenda items. If you would sign in with Ms. LaPera, again, a 3-minute time limit. If you could let us know your name and where you reside in the district.
Robin, before we adjourn.
Please, Dr. O'Leary.
I was going to do this as the first person came up, I guess, but earlier public comment, someone asked about the detailed budget. And we've been presenting sort of an overview because I think the detail is tough to present, you know, in a big group. But I just wanted to point out that it is online in today's agenda, and I assume it'll be moved to that web page shortly after this meeting. Is that correct? It will. Okay. Okay. Good. Thank you.
The board also publishes, the district publishes a budget book that comes out, I think, in April.
With the proposed final budget.
Right, and that's a very extensive.
We also get into a lot more detail in the finance committee meeting. So I think in the larger business meeting, it's typically summative, but for the finance meetings, we've gone into extensive detail and gone line by line as needed, as requested by board members as well as the public. So thank you for that. Please.
Okay. Hello, Adrienne Seltzer again. I just wanted to bring something to your attention. This page in your budget sales promo, because that's what it looked like to me. On that page, it shows the number of students. And in itself, that is a good chart. But where you went to making it misleading was by taking one of the numbers above and saying that that represented 7.8% gain. We're talking about a difference of percentages. When you added percentages in there, then your chart becomes a misrepresentation. Because if you look at the number I filled in, the one with the line that's about half the size of Lower Merion Township's increase is a 17.25% increase. So I just think that playing with the numbers in that way is a little misleading and lends your presentation to be more of a sales promo than something that's an actual budget. And I just wanted you to be aware of that some of us can see that. And, you know, coupled with the lawsuit and the supposed misrepresentation of the budget, it doesn't quite pass the sniff test, if you know what I mean. So I just want you to think about that. And here's my request for...
Thank you.
Thank you. That's right, I remember sending you the last one. And I thank you very much for your time and all your hard work.
Thank you. Any more speakers, Ms. LaPera? No? Okay.
In the presentation that we showed the last time, the bar chart indicated both the number of students and the percentage of growth. Obviously, if a district is smaller, more students will show a different percentage of growth. I'll be glad to have a conversation with Ms. Seltzer after this. I'm not quite sure the totality of the point that she's trying to make. What we're trying to do is overall demonstrate that the Lower Merion School District is growing at a far greater rate than other school districts. Our growth is 21.3%. It's the second highest growing by percentage, but it's the first, or it's the most highest growing by number of students. There's nothing that we've done that I'm aware of that's at all misleading. We are trying to demonstrate a complete picture for those who want the numbers. The numbers are available, but we do think letting people know the full set of circumstances is important.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. We will now have the report of the Sunshine Act by Mr. Roos.
Thank you. Board conducted executive sessions on February 6th and February 13th as listed in the agenda. The topics for both executive sessions was deliberation regarding collective bargaining agreement.
Thank you very much, and with that, we are adjourned.